Now that I'm in my friend's shirt, keeping the Tamagotchi here because it is fitting with the times. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Selene. So today I just wanted to casually chat about the Friends reunion. If you're not aware, HBO Max released a reunion special of the Friends cast, the Friends show, and it has been something that has been very long awaited in the Friends fandom. Friends is an iconic TV show, an iconic sitcom that lasted for 10 whole seasons, 10 years. The cast is like famously weird about reuniting, I guess, or weird about the show. I think it's just one of those things where the obsession with the show was so huge, it was worldwide, that it seems like the actors are kind of over it, especially by the end. Basically, they just don't reunite often, or they have not, agreed to any kind of reboots or expressed like a lot of desire to reunite often. They do seem to get along well and still have a lot of love for each other based on what we see in this special. So I just kind of wanted to give my thoughts overall on the special, and I'm going to also talk about the various revelations we saw on it from different cast members. So if you haven't watched, I would recommend watching it first before watching this video, or if you don't plan to watch it, this might be a good recap video for it. I'm going to be revealing things that were like big moments from the reunion or big revelations, so if you're trying not to get spoiled, watch it first. But if you don't care, you can go ahead. I'll tell you like the highlights of what was revealed, which were kind of juicy. So first I'm going to go through sort of the cast and how they were seemingly acting throughout the reunion special. All of them seemed very happy to see each other, very sweet. The first scene was them entering into like a recreation of the whole Friends set. So it's Joey and Chandler's apartment, the hallway, Monica's apartment, and Central Perk as well, all kind of in a line. It was honestly, as a big fan of Friends, really cool to see this set, like the broader view of how the set looks, because when you watch a TV show, a sitcom, a multicam sitcom, you're always aware that like you are in the fourth wall and that there isn't a wall there. That's where the cameras are. It's always kind of a little bit trippy to see that, even though we know that is the case. It's also trippy to see how like, locations that are supposedly in different places are next to each other on the set, like Central Perk being a doorway away from Monica's apartment when we know it's supposed to be like downstairs. All of the cast had very like strong reactions to seeing the set. So David Schwimmer was the first to walk in. So in general, David Schwimmer was very upbeat for it. He seemed to be very knowledgeable. He seemed to be a bit of a leader in the cast of like saying things. I forget about David Schwimmer because Ross, the character David Schwimmer played, is sort of the most hated character on Friends, and especially by people that are more progressive. Like, basically, you could name like 50 things that Ross did throughout Friends that should have gotten him canceled if it were to happen now. He was like the most problematic character. I think because he is sort of disliked, and I agree, like I don't like him very much. He dated a student, he was sexist a lot of the time, he was threatened by like a male nanny, he made homophobic jokes about his ex-wife, like things like that just like at the time were like jokey but just did not age well, and Ross ended up getting like a lot of these traits. So I kind of forget and I discount David Schwimmer a lot because like Ross is problematic, so in my head like I'm annoyed by him, but I forget David Schwimmer isn't Ross, and like David Schwimmer is a good actor and like he's a funny actor. Like this reunion special reminded me that David Schwimmer is also like a talented, funny actor, and that it's not necessarily his fault that Ross was like a total asshole in the show. Then came in Lisa Kudrow, and I think Lisa Kudrow, she's the one I'm most familiar with outside of Friends, and like hearing her interviews and seeing her on the comeback mostly, but other shows and movies. To me, like, Lisa Kudrow isn't just Phoebe, and she is like a lot of different things. But Lisa Kudrow is so interesting because she is so different from her characters. She, as an actress and in her interviews, comes off very like kind of cynical. She's like a very geniusy type of actress, and that like she fully just becomes the character when she's in character, and when she's out of it, she's like so kind of serious and like more just like cynical about her characters. Like, it's so weird. Like, there's actors like this often that I notice. They play like really upbeat or quirky or fun-loving, positive characters, and then you hear them talk in an interview and they're a lot more like subdued, and like they're more like the studious actor that like is so good at acting that like in real life they're just like studious and serious about their role. It's weird, but I've noticed this with a few actors. Lisa Kudrow is definitely one of them. Titus Burgess is like this, and Billy Eichner to me are like this. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you hear these actors talk, they play such like silly characters on media, but like in real life they're studied and they're like serious actors, and it's interesting. But Lisa Kudrow is like this. She's obviously very sweet around the cast and all that. She's just like more of a serious person in real life, from what I've gathered. Then we had, after Lisa, came in Matt LeBlanc. Matt LeBlanc was such a joy in this special. He was just like, he's such a dad, and I don't mean like in like, oh, I'm attracted to daddy kind of thing, which I'm sure some people are. He just seemed like a dad. Like, he is dad. He looks like very dad-like, and he was very like bubbly throughout. So this is the opposite kind of actor to like the Lisa Kudrow type of actor that's like serious and studious about their role, but like critical at the same time of themselves. Matt LeBlanc, which he is critical of himself, he mentioned, but Matt LeBlanc is the other side of the spectrum of actors that is like a fan of the show they're on. Like, you can tell he's watched a lot of episodes, he knows how to quote it, he remembers a lot of details, and he like watches the show. He's a fan of watching the show. He was just making jokes a lot. He was really probably the highlight, I think, of the cast. He was the most like fun or like excited to be there. Like, even this part that was actually kind of a very dark part, and he played it off to be like silly, but like he just seems like a very positive person, because he told this story about how he was watching the news one day and the frame split into 6, and in each frame was each of their homes, like an aerial shot of each of their houses live. He's like telling the story, and the rest of the cast is like, oh my god, like that's like, they're like, ugh, that's crazy kind of thing, which is I think the natural reaction to that. And Matt LeBlanc is just like, yeah, like I was watching that, it was crazy, but then I realized my roof is a mess, and I went and had to go fix my roof because there was like something wrong with it. So like he like really took a positive spin on something that's kind of dark. It's crazy celebrities are subjected to this kind of surveillance, and it's creepy, to be frank. So he's just like a very positive light. He was really funny when Jennifer and David Schwimmer were talking about their crushes, which we'll get to that. So after Matt came in Jennifer Aniston. Jennifer Aniston seems to be one of the more sensitive ones of the group. She was pretty like weepy, and it was like really sweet. I'm sure she has a lot of emotions like they all do. She was just really sweet throughout. She was supportive and very like physically always kind of being supportive, like putting a hand on someone's shoulder. Then came in Courtney Cox, I think. She was also pretty weepy, pretty sensitive. I feel like Courtney Cox was the most quiet throughout the whole special. I don't know. I get the vibe that Courtney Cox is like very basic. And I don't mean that as shade. Like, there are basic people in the world. There are a lot of basic people in this world. I just get the feeling she's like a bit basic and just simple in her personality. Like she just gives me like mom vibes, rich mom vibes. Maybe a little Real Housewives-y. It's hard to explain. She just gives me a bit of basic vibes. Then we had Matthew Perry, who Matthew Perry has had sort of like one of the most difficult journeys that we've seen from the Friends cast. He was getting sort of a lot of like concern from the fandom in general because he was being a little slurry with his words. Honestly, I thought he was like pretty present. He was like a little quiet, but I thought throughout the special he was having fun. He was kind of cracking jokes. There's nothing that we've learned about him that should be a cause for concern at this point. And I feel annoyed how like, I feel like if you reveal something different about yourself or weird about yourself or like a difficult journey like Matthew Perry, he had, if you don't know, he had a lot of difficulties with drug addiction in the past. Like, I feel like once people learn that, they're like overanalyzing everything about you on screen or wherever. Matthew Perry, from what we know, is like healthy and okay in general. I thought he was fine. I thought he was present. About the slurring thing, I've seen articles that he actually had to get emergency dental surgery the day of the special taping. He had some emotional moments where he cried, and it was just sweet to see him. I also don't think there needed to be any mention of those difficult times he went through. I think a lot of people are very curious about it, and even I'm a bit curious just because like he was working so much and also going through such difficult things. So I think people are just curious about how he managed that. But also it's like a very sensitive thing. And I don't think this is a place. Maybe he could do his own project someday if he feels comfortable talking about it. But this is definitely not where I expected to hear about that at all. So now let's get into some of the revelations and interesting stories they told. There are a few little tidbits we got at this reunion special that were very interesting and new information for the fans. So I think the biggest bombshell that was dropped at this reunion was that Jennifer Aniston and David Schwimmer had mutual Ross and Rachel style crushes on each other during especially the first season of Friends. Apparently it was like a thing that they sort of were crushing on each other and flirty on set, but one of them was always in a relationship, so nothing ever came of it. Courtney Cox makes an interesting comment right now at the special. She's like, that would have been crazy if it would have happened, but it would have been unfortunate if like you guys broke up or things ended badly, and the show would be very affected by that. So it's definitely interesting. It's a big bombshell, I think, for fans to learn about this, and apparently they channeled this flirtation and this tension into Ross and Rachel, which Ross and Rachel was like such a big... People were so invested in Ross and Rachel. They invented the will they, won't they thing that then The Office jumped on. But people were so invested in Ross and Rachel, so maybe their off-screen chemistry really played a part in creating that tension between them. And their first kiss was the first kiss of Ross and Rachel in the coffee shop. So that was crazy. I don't know what to make of that. It's wild. And they played some cute clips of them being like kind of flirty on set. It was super cute. It's just wild to think about, even though I don't really ship Ross and Rachel because Ross is a jackass. And also I see a lot on TikTok about like young people or teens that are like, man, if I had to act with any hot actor, I would fall in love immediately kind of thing. And I feel like some actors do sort of develop feelings. I mean, we saw it with Olivia Rodrigo and Joshua Bassett on the High School Musical series. I do think it's weird, like, how can you play lovers sometimes without developing some sort of crushes? So it makes sense. They were very young, and it's really sweet. So another revelation that I found just kind of funny was that apparently like a very difficult part of filming Friends was working with the monkey, and David Schwimmer sort of described how difficult it was to work with the monkey because he would not get his marks right, or he would be eating like nasty bugs while on David Schwimmer's shoulder. It's crazy. Friends brought in Marcel, I think it's season 2. It was an early season they brought in Marcel, and it's really funny because it's like, that sounds like a gag you would bring in like season 8 or 9 or 10 to make it interesting, but they just right off the bat went with like the gimmicks and brought in a monkey to their show. I'm scared of monkeys, to be honest. They're too smart. So another revelation that was like a little thing, but apparently some of them haven't watched a lot of the show. Lisa Kudrow specifically mentioned there were whole seasons she hasn't watched, and I think Matthew Perry agreed. Matt LeBlanc, of course, was the opposite. He was like, you can tell he's a big fan. He's like watched every episode. I don't blame them for this. I feel like there's different kinds of actors that do or don't like seeing what they're in. Lisa Kudrow mentioned she's very critical of herself. Even Matt LeBlanc mentioned that he doesn't buy whatever he's saying because he knows he was acting, kind of thing. And I don't blame them, because it's like, imagine you go to work for 12 hours a day or whatever. On your spare time, I don't think you want to watch footage of yourself at work. Like, no matter if the show is like a great show or super well written and all that, you might watch it, premiere night or whatever, but like, I definitely understand not wanting to just watch yourself at work in your spare free time. When you frame it that way, I think it makes more sense why they wouldn't watch the show. So another revelation came from Matthew Perry, and I thought this one was kind of like a little sad. He mentioned how he was very, very affected by how the audience would receive his jokes, and he said it would like just greatly affect him whether the crowd received it well or received it poorly. It would greatly affect his mood and his like mental state. Who knows where that comes from? Maybe he's just like very self-critical of his art. I would imagine he's an artist like all these others. It just seems like, oh, I'm sorry. and the rest of the cast is kind of echoing that sentiment. They were like, I'm sorry you were so affected by just like the reception of the audience in general. But also another revelation about the audience was interesting, and this was related to a plotline on Friends. Apparently the reaction from the audience heavily influenced the trajectory of Monica and Chandler's relationship in the show. At first, the writers intended for their fling to just be in London, and to just be that, just a fling. The audience reacted so strongly for a long time, cheering, that the writers were like, oh, we should listen to that, pay attention, and actually explore this more deeply than we had initially intended. So I thought that was a very interesting revelation in how the audience influenced the writing and the plot of Friends. So some other little revelations that I thought were fun. Well, not fun. Some of them they're fun looking back at it, but not fun at the time probably. But apparently Matt LeBlanc dislocated his shoulder in a certain scene. It was the bottle episode the one where no one's ready, I think is the official title. Joey did this jump into the couch where he like somehow dislocated his shoulder, and they showed footage of that moment happening. It's not graphic really because it's kind of internal, you can't really see. And they had to write his sling into the show. That's kind of wild that happened, but it makes sense with a lot of physical comedy and things. Another cute moment was when they were first looking at the set and they talked about how Courtney Cox had memory problems with her lines and often hid her dialogue, her lines in the set, on the table, in the fruit, in the sink. One time Matt LeBlanc tried to erase them, and Courtney got so mad at him. So now I'm going to get into sort of favorite and least favorite just moments from the special itself. It did have a lot of guest stars and a lot of different little segments about different aspects of the show. I really liked in general how they included the three main creators and writers of Friends. It's like the Bright, Kaufman, and Crane logo that shows up at the end of each episode. We rarely see the writers of any show, even if they're huge like this one, but in general, they are the people, the characters that we've fallen in love with are sort of most accurately reflections of these writers. They mentioned how they were inspired by their own lives in their 20s in New York trying to make it and find love, and they were like kind of down on their luck. I just imagine that these three people were the friends, the actual friends we've fallen in love with in the show in some way. I like that they highlighted them and had good interviews with them. I like getting to know them a little more because they are the ones. We focus a lot on the actors, but the actors are so different from their characters. they're not the characters we fall in love with. I really like this segment that was like mostly them talking, the writers and creators talking about the casting of each friend. I thought it was very interesting to hear about how each person was cast. I loved just learning about that. So both Jennifer Aniston and Matthew Perry were committed to other sitcoms when they were trying to cast them for Friends. The one that was so funny was Matthew Perry had committed to this show that was about luggage handlers at LAX in like the distant future. So it was like a sci-fi sitcom, and they showed like a clip from it, and it was just so funny, and like in like a bad way, like it was bad funny. And I'm glad they got him for Friends. They actually released him because that show was so unpromising. The creators just let him go to Friends. Honestly, it could have been campy, but it was probably not the best for like mainstream television. That's not the type of show we see often. So of course, my favorite moment of the whole reunion was my queen, my fave, coming in to duet Smelly Cat with Lisa Kudrow. I'm kind of sad I did see spoilers of this on Twitter beforehand, so I sort of knew it was coming, but it was just so great to see Gaga there and sing Smelly Cat. So Lisa Kudrow, Phoebe, my favorite character on Friends. Lisa Kudrow, one of my favorite actresses ever because she is the star of my favorite show ever, The Comeback. Lady Gaga, my favorite artist of all time. Together in a room singing Smelly Cat, and I love cats. Like, it's just like literally one of those everything I love in one moment. I loved this. It is kind of random, but also like I'm obsessed. Lady Gaga went all out with her outfit, and honestly my favorite part of the whole special was Gaga and what she said to Lisa Kudrow at the end. Literally, this is why I stan Lady Gaga so much. At the end of the performance, Lady Gaga said, like, can I just say something? Thank you so much for representing for all of us that were different and just being the one that was always yourself. Lisa Kudrow then responds like, of course, and thank you for carrying it along. And literally, this is why I love Lady Gaga so much. Like, I have loved her since I was a kid because I've always been very different, very much an outcast, and like just a little different from my peers. And Lady Gaga was just like that person who just preached about it being okay and represented for us. So even in this moment, she was representing for us, the different kids who love Phoebe, because I also love Phoebe for the same reasons I love Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is just still representing the weird kids today as much as she was back in 2009, 2010. So she is my representative for the weirdos of the world. And she thanked Lisa Kudrow for that performance of being the weird one. That was just a very special line for me and shows in one sentence like why I love Lady Gaga. So I think a lot of people had this reaction, but the initial graphic that showed all of the guest stars that were on this reunion special brought out a lot of weird reactions from the fans, including me. I had a very weirded out reaction to it because it was so freaking random, like the people that were included in this special, like BTS and Justin Bieber and Malala and Cara Delevingne. It was just random as hell. Honestly, they did it well because it was such a long list of guest stars that it was concerning that like they would take up a lot of the time from the main six or the people from the show actually. Luckily, they did a good job. The guest stars' roles were pretty small and they sort of served as like transitionary things for the documentary as a whole. It was okay in the end. I think the only guest star I really had a problem with was James Corden in general, just because he's just like shoehorns himself into everything, and I have not met anybody that likes him or loves him. Get anyone else. Get like a New Yorker maybe, or James Corden just felt really random. Luckily, he was okay as the interview. He didn't like overstep or overshadow much. He could have been anybody. with the questions he was given. And everyone else that was a guest star did okay. Like some of them, like Justin Bieber, were just there for a fashion show. He didn't have any lines or anything. And then we had also guest stars that actually showed up on the show, which I kind of wish they had a little more input or a little more lines or something. Because like Tom Selleck, Janice had a pretty small part, Gunther had a very small part. And also I felt like they were missing some iconic guest stars that would have been cool. Like I think Paul Rudd is a big one that they missed. Paul Rudd is around, we know, at least through Zoom. Anna Faris maybe would be kind of cute, just like maybe a little cameo from her. These people were kind of at the end of the series, and I feel like they were focusing on like the peak golden era, which was like sort of the first half or the middle. It would have been still been cool to see them, and they became big stars after these stunts on Friends, really. I think it would have been super cool to have Cole Sprouse be the holiday armadillo. I've seen this mentioned in the subreddit. I didn't just come up with that. I thought it would have been cool to have Cole Sprouse. I just call him Cole Sprouse because that's what Cameron calls him. Cole Sprouse should have been there. Cole Sprouse played Ben, who was Ross's son in the show when he was like a kid, like in the Big Daddy era of Cole Sprouse. And again, we know Cole Sprouse is around on the Riverdale set somewhere. If they could get Justin Bieber, they could have gotten Cole Sprouse. I don't know why I had this Mandela effect happen for me, but I swear on the graphic that had all the guest stars, I was gonna sworn I saw Harry Styles there. During the special, it was towards the end, and I was like, oh, I wonder when Harry Styles is gonna come up. Maybe he's gonna sing like a cover of the theme song or something. Then the credits roll, and I was like, where the hell is Harry Styles? What? And then I checked the graphic again, and Harry Styles was not there. So I just made that up, probably wishful thinking. It had so many guest stars, I got all confused in my head. But I'm happy Lady Gaga was there. That's all I care about. I think overall, they did a really good job. I think it was cool to make it a documentary style. We, as fans, had expected more of like a talk show format, sort of like the James Corden segment, but like the whole time. But I'm really glad they had more intimate, like they had table reads and they had exploring the set. They watched some bloopers. You can sort of tell the production value and HBO is behind it. HBO generally tends to keep it pretty artistic. I think they did a good job producing this reunion. All Friends fans always want more. So I feel like I want more. There's a few extras, like 3-minute clips if you haven't seen those. I do wonder, sorry, I know I talk about the comeback every freaking video, but the comeback was the show that Lisa Kudrow did on HBO after Friends. I wonder how much of like Valerie Cherish is informed by not only Lisa Kudrow herself, but like Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox. I don't know why I get this vibe that Courtney Cox influenced some of Valerie Cherish. It's literally just a hunch, a gut feeling. I have no evidence to back this up, and I'll stop talking about it. I just wanted to mention that and how, I don't know, I feel like if they bring back the comeback ever for a season 3, there's definitely gonna be some reunion reboot storylines on it, because that's like now where we are in media. I don't know. I'm hoping for it, but we'll see. So anyway, that's off topic. I'll stop talking about the comeback. Yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the Friends reunion. I would love to know what you guys think in the comments below. Did you enjoy the reunion? Did you not? Any thoughts about it in general? I'd love to hear it. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos about twice a week. You can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!